Hi there, everyone, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's January 25th. Today we celebrate a poet who loved flowers and became the beloved poet son of a country that celebrates him still today. We'll also learn about an orchid that inspired a fabled true story about Charles Darwin. We'll hear some fascinating vegetable history that is celebrated every year on this day. And we grow that garden library today with some incredible exotic flower photography. And then we'll wrap things up with the garden and the 3 R's of renovation. Now, before we get to all of that, I wanted to take a second to ask you a favor. If you have some time this week and can leave a review for the show over at Podchaser, I would very much appreciate that. Right now, the show has around 10 reviews, and I have a goal of 50 reviews, and I would love your help in meeting that goal. And then I wanted to make sure that you knew about the Daily Gardener Friday newsletter. This is a fun little email that you can get from me every single Friday. And I try to make the newsletter like you're getting a little note from a garden friend. You'll hear what's going on in my own garden world, along with new ideas and gardening inspiration that I save up all week to share with you. In addition, you'll get an extra dose of botanical history and literature to get you through the weekend. So just head on over to the website for the show at thedailygardener.org and sign up for the free Friday newsletter today. Here's today's curated news. Today's article is from Gardener's World, and it's a popular topic. It's how to grow chilies. You know, if you are a new gardener, it really doesn't get much easier than chilies. And I have plenty of friends that ended up becoming fabulous salsa makers because they started out as a gardener and then one day they decided to grow their own chilies. Anyway, think of this post, How to Grow Chilies, over at Gardener's World, kind of like a little soup to nuts tutorial on how to do that. It's their best advice. Now, if you would like to read this article for yourself, just search for the word chili in the Facebook group for the show, and this post from Gardener's World will pop right up. Now, if you're not in the Facebook group, it is so easy to join. The next time you're on Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of the Scottish poet and lyricist Robert Burns, who was born on this day, January 25th in 1759. Widely regarded as the national poet of Scotland and celebrated worldwide, tonight is Burns Night. And each year, Burns Night commemorates Robert, the poet born into a poor Scottish family of farmers. Now, a typical Burns Night includes live music, poetry readings of Burns' masterpieces, and a traditional Scottish meal of haggis, neeps, and tatties. Now, gardeners have a soft spot for Robert Burns. His 1794 poem, Red, Red Rose, starts out with the familiar verse, "Oh, my loves, like a red, red rose." And gardeners have always loved Robert's poem, To a Mountain Daisy, with the line, "Sweet floweret of the rural shade, by love's simplicity betrayed." And of course, the way to end a fantastic Burns Night celebration is to sing Robert's most famous poem, which has now been set to music, Auld Lang Syne. And it was on this day, January 25th in 1862, that the English naturalist, geologist, and biologist Charles Darwin received a box of orchids. After sorting through all of the flowers, one orchid in particular caught Charles' attention, the Angraecum sesquipedale, commonly called Darwin's orchid, the Christmas orchid, the Star of Bethlehem orchid, or the King of the Angraecums. An epiphyte, meaning it grows on other plants, the orchid was initially discovered by the French botanist Louis-Marie Aubert du Petit-Trois in 1798. Now, when Charles first laid eyes on this orchid, he suspected that a then unknown moth with an almost 14-inch long tongue, or proboscis, must have co-evolved with the orchid to pollinate it. Now, many people scoffed at this, a moth with an almost 14-inch long tongue. And sadly, Charles didn't live long enough to see his prediction come true. It wasn't until 21 years after his death in 1903 that a moth was discovered with a proboscis that could perfectly reach the almost 14-inch nectary. And Charles was proved right. And once the moth was officially discovered, it was named Predicta, or the predicted one. Incredibly, it took 9 more decades for scientists to observe the moth pollinating the orchid. In 1992, a German entomologist named Lutz Wasserthal traveled to Madagascar and captured 2 moths. After placing the moths in a cage with the orchid, Lutz managed to photograph them pollinating the flower. And it happened just as Charles Darwin imagined it would have after receiving the orchid on this day, January 25th, in 1862. In Unearthed Words, today's words are from one of my all-time favorite garden writers, Lorraine Harrison, from her book called A Potted History of Vegetables. Neep is the Scots term for the rutabaga, the root vegetable known as swede in Britain. And when we say neeps and tatties, the tatties are a reference to mashed potatoes. And so neeps and tatties are the traditional accompaniment to haggis served on Burns Night. Recipes vary, but butter and a little spice, such as nutmeg or powdered ginger, are common additions. And all, of course, must be washed down with a glass of whiskey. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Botanica Magnifica by Jonathan Singer. This book came out in 2009, and the subtitle is Portraits of the World's Most Extraordinary Flowers and Plants. In this out-of-print book, Jonathan Singer shares 250 of his stunning photographs of rare and exotic plants and flowers in large scale and exquisite detail in a manner evocative of old master paintings. Now, the original edition of Botanica Magnifica consists of 5 lavishly hand-bound volumes and was limited to just 10 copies, the first of which was donated to the Smithsonian. And Botanica Magnifica is one of the few natural history works ever to rival Audubon's magnum opus in its scope and artistry. Jonathan's remarkable images are bound together in this beautiful hardcover, which comes with a slipcase, and each pictured plant is accompanied by a description of its botany, geography, folklore, history, and conservation. This book is 356 pages of one of the most impressive volumes of botanical photography ever printed. You can get a copy of Botanica Magnifica by Jonathan Singer and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $62. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day, January 25th, in 2002, that the Vancouver Sun shared an article by Steve Weissel called 3 R's Hold the Key to Garden Renovation. The 3 R's are restore, renovate, and revitalize. Here's an excerpt. To pull it off, you've got to be honest. You need to look at your garden without sentiment or romanticism and admit, painful as this may be, that things have not worked out as planned and that changes are needed. For help, you could call in an expert. Someone like Nina McCutcheon of Langley is now a specialist at renovating and upgrading gardens that have gone astray. One time, Nina was a copywriter in advertising, but she's now one of Vancouver's ace garden designers. For example, in West Vancouver, she came to the rescue of a waterfront garden grossly overgrown by red roses and mugo pines. Most of it had to go, says Nina. To renovate, it's usually a case of digging up 80% of what's there, everything that can be lifted, and turfing what you don't want, replanting what's worth recycling, and then bringing in new stuff. What are the signs that a garden needs a makeover? Loss of structure is the most obvious, Nina says. It's a sign things are wrong when trees and shrubs are too big for their location, or paths are overgrown, or arbors and arches are lost under mounds of foliage. All these are symptoms that a garden has lost its identity. Loss of color is another clue. Perhaps a tree that once had a small canopy now casts so much shade that instead of growing roses, you have to start planting hostas. Or perhaps plants that were once a comfortable distance apart have grown too close, and the effect is jarring. The loss of a sense of peace and tranquility is another sign. And of course, there's always the fact that you may simply be bored with how your garden looks. Step 1 is to evaluate what plants are worth keeping. Some will be too big to move. Some can be shovel pruned, dug up, and tossed out. The next step is to prune. Intelligent pruning can change things dramatically. Not only can you end up with a more attractive plant, but the pruning will also let in more light and air so other plants can thrive. And another step is to remove old or unwanted plants. When you lift plants, it gives you the opportunity to revitalize the soil. Over time, old soil can become sour and compact. When you renovate, you empty the border and can bring in new soil. So there you go. The 3 R's of garden renovation: restore, renovate, and revitalize. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, Garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Wyoming, Minnesota with the help of Paige Mance, Brooke Bierbaum, Kiana Rayleigh, Maddie Doyle, Natalie Decker, and Eric Begay. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media. You can follow the show on Instagram, and listeners always have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. All the stories and books that are featured on the show can be found over at thedailygardener.org, thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. Last but not least, you can share your own gardener greetings on the show by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow. And it was on this day, Auld Lang Syne. Here we go.